Hey everybody, welcome to this week's show. I guess it's called Attack on Auraxis, but that's just a generic name for a lot of the stuff I like to do. And actually, for this week, we're going to be talking about farmers. And I don't know if you guys know what that is, but it's a 6v6 tournament that was hosted by various Future Crew members. And if you watched last night, there were some really exciting matches. And today, actually, there's a few really knowledgeable guys here. We have Scourge
Hello.
and MAXiMUMSmurF from AC.
Hey, how's it going?
And Sayl from Recursion.
Happy to be here.
So actually, a lot of the buildup, and I think you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but like a lot of the hype I think surrounding just the entire tournament were these matches. I mean, you probably could have mixed up any of the teams, and the hype would have been equal. But at least for me, and I know you guys, I know Scourge and Maxi played in it. Like, did it live up to the hype in like you guys' opinion?
I think so. I was really impressed with that night's matches. There's somewhat of a little bit of rivalry with a lot of the players, specifically in those four outfits. This is some of the top tier players in the entire team. Future Crew is obviously a very well known outfit. I'm from AC and we're very infantry focused, very infantry elite focused. Um, and then you have Recursion and NBA is also very well known. So you have like these very heavy hitter, big players that are kind of like really going out and showcasing what top tier gameplay does versus top tier gameplay. It's really exciting to see.
Yeah, and I think it was. I mean, the matches yesterday were really close. Like all of them, yeah, in every round was close too. So it was really cool to see a tournament for once that wasn't just blowout matches, and or like you see like one team win in the first 5 minutes and then victory parade for 40 minutes. There was a lot of back and forth. It was exciting the whole time. This could go either way,
Yeah, and
and
you
it's
actually,
not single elimination.
yeah, that I was about to say that you keep going and you actually learn from it. Now, you said something. You said it was really close. Like, what does that mean in the context of farmers? Like, I mean, there's obviously like for people that don't know, there's a point system, and you can go to ps2farmers.com to check it out. But what does a close match do? Like, what point differential would you say, Scourge?
Well, I would say like up until the last like two minutes of every match, it was like, I mean, maybe even a minute for some of the matches. Like the first round with AC versus DA, especially probably like any single play of the team could have changed the score one way or the other. Like just one single push could have been the difference between winning or losing the round.
Would you agree with that,
Yeah,
Sal?
it was.
Sorry, I know,
Yeah,
I know.
I think honestly, like from a perspective of having skin in the game, it was pretty hard. Like I think I lost a few years off my life with the worry because it was just like especially because it's like even when you have a lead, that doesn't mean that the sides are equal. Like north side might be stronger than south side. So even if you have like a slight lead, but you had it on the side that's stronger, you could just lose that lead, very quickly. So it was a really tight game. You know, and no one, my outfit's very point focused. We want that point, and they never let us have the point. So it's like, it was surprising.
Do you want to add something, Maxi?
I was just I played during the ACDA match, and I remember at the end of the first round how we got the point cap, and the only reason why we were ahead was because of that point cap. We had really surprisingly effective pushes that we experienced from DA, and they were able to close that gap. And going back and watching it afterwards, there was just things that you just can't predict. Like Scourge was saying, it was close in all the matches, even up until the very end. That there was no point where anyone thought that they really just had it down. It wasn't until the very end of the match we really knew who was gonna take the lead away.
Yeah, and actually, Cell said something that was interesting. He said the north side was better than the south. So with that, let's talk about this map. I know, actually, I only played on the last map that you guys played in last week, and that was kind of more of a wide open. And actually, until you got to the point, but this one featured like a huge double stack. Like, how did this building, like, what do you guys think about this map? Did you guys like it? Did you not like it?
I liked it, but you could definitely feel that there was a slight advantage for Northside. Pretty definitely. And also the way the map is designed, there's a little bit of flanking shenanigans that happens, and there's like heavies can jump up on the roof from the north side, stuff like that. But ultimately, it basically turns into just pushing straight up the middle over and over again.
Yeah, it was kind of a very familiar building with this map. This building is hosted across all of Auraxis multiple times, and so it was kind of an arena in which everyone knew, you know, like the top of the big stairs is one of those kind of key points that you have to take, and to come in, you know, at once down the bottom, and then there's little stairs. Like all of these things were very familiar, just because even on live play, you're always making pushes in that exact environment. But on this map specifically, you kind of were. Pigeonholed a little bit into, if you're on the south side, then you have to come in those three doors. If you're on the north side, you kind of have to come in the top. And there wasn't really a lot of mixing that up, not a lot of opportunity for creating flanks and stuff like that.
Yeah, and actually, I don't know if you guys are watching the stream. I'm actually in the map right now on Jaeger, and I'm looking at this angle, and there is a lot of stuff, even like in the first match, Max, like the DA. I mean, there's a lot of rocket primaries throughout the entire match, way, way more than the last map. Like, what do you think about that? Do you think that the rocket primary makes it a little more exciting? Is it just like super cheesy? Like, how did
Well,
that take into effect in this map?
I think rocket primary on live is something that is a little bit different than how it was used here. Here, rocket primaries, the way AC did it anyway, wasn't so much for the actual kill. But if you see a lot of us on the top stairs, we weren't actually shooting at people, but we were using the splash damage to suppress pushes, to get people's shields down, to delay their push on the point. And what we were trying to do was kind of buy time with spontaneous rockets out there so we could get points on the cap. So it was used a little bit differently than I think the term rocket primary is generally conceived of.
Yeah, I think that was our single biggest weakness as a team, was we weren't really using rockets all that much or effectively, and we weren't doing grenades a lot. And that's the thing, is this map, there's just a lot of room, especially the stairs, bottom stairs, just for splash damage.
Yeah, those are kind of paramount in this map. With this map, you get control of the top of the stairs from like the North Sunday, and it's incredibly hard to push into that huge open area from the south end. But if the south end puts a few key nades at the top of the stairs, all of a sudden, for a few opportune moments, you're denying the Northern Sunday those opportune spots, and those are the moments when you push in those beautiful coordinated throw a grenade and three heavies come up the stairs moments. So it's not like the North Sunday just is completely, you're unable to react. So there's a lot of plays you can make from the south that might give you opportunities where you can get clean wipes and really rack up points on the scoreboard.
Yeah, actually, I like what you guys are saying. 'Cause I noticed that too. It almost feels like rocket primaries. If you get a kill, it's like the icing on the cake. But like, how important? We're watching DA versus AC right now. Like, how important do you think like all those explosions and AOE effects are for like displacement? Like, how important is it to like make the opponent move and you'd be able to stay where you are? Like, does that even matter? Like what do you think, so?
I think, because as Scourge, pointed out that it is like a pretty much a bullfight. You go straight in with the horns. And so the rocket primary is more like taking out some of their, sustainability, because if you shoot them with a rocket, unless they have a medic, and the medic's sort of a liability, you get a power play, you get a pick, and so the rocket primaries allow you to do that, and it's extremely hard to sit in those really good spots when there's so much splash and so much spam. So between this, it's just a really effective tool on that particular map.
Yeah, someone in chat asked about like lead assaults and why they weren't used in this map. Like, do any of you guys want to answer that? I mean, was there? I noticed nobody even used lead assault. It was just like infills, heavies, and I think a couple maxes.
Yeah, we debated it, and like the biggest reason by far was the fact that you can just be heavy assault and just get up on the roof on the north side. There's like a little spot you can jump up. So it's kind of like, well, I could just be up there with an overshield.
Yeah, that's kind of the viewpoint that AC took on it as well. The mobility that Lysol offered in this map could put you on the roof, but that was also accessible with any other class. And if you play Light Assault, then you have one less overshield, one less like heavy infantry that you can use. And there's a lot of really heavy fighting on the inside of this map where Light Assault might not be too effective.
Yeah, I think too, especially if you're in the south, you have a lot of cover running to the point. I mean, not a lot of cover, but you have enough cover where if you are heavy, you could just pop it and hide. I think it's probably more of a liability, like you guys were talking about. But let's talk about the actual match. Now I noticed that DA in the first round. Sorry, one second. You guys can answer this. I noticed that DA in the very first round conceded a point. I mean, they just waited outside and they let you guys cap. By you, I mean AC. Like, do you think, like, why do you think they did that? It seems kind of like a strange call, not to get aggressive on a point.
Oh, well, an initial aggression isn't necessarily beneficial on a map like this when you're flipping the point down from the neutral faction. Those first 2 minutes of the flip, you're only eating away at the neutral faction, and either team can do that. And there's no point in kind of expending or giving the other team kills for that. You can just let them take the point, let them get that neutral timer down, and it's only until it starts counting up and ticking towards your faction are you really making a gain towards your team. You might as well put yourself in an advantageous position during that initial push.
Yeah, it definitely seems like capturing the point for that 25 points or whatever, not nearly as valuable as teams thought when they first started practicing for this format. It's just, the biggest thing seems to be just having momentum, having your team just sustained, not wiping, not having people reinforcing it over and over again.
Now you say momentum. Like, so how important of a role does the point play? Because I know Dis last week, he said something that I thought was really smart. He said that people look at the point and say, okay, well, it's worth 25 points to capture it, but it actually gives you like a lot of benefits, right? It gives you that momentum. It gives you that positional advantage. Like, do you think that's almost more important?
Well, it gives you those things, but you also pay for it, is what people are finding out. Because you have this pressure to try and stay on the point and not let them flip it, but you end up kind of overextended a lot of times. Where if you're playing much more carefully, which I think both the winning teams did, where they weren't totally just bullheaded about having the point all the time. They're more concerned about, getting kills on the enemy team, making sure that, they were all together and that they were pushing together, etc. And, then you just incidentally get the point flip at some point.
How important was squad comp for you guys? Like, I know each base. That's why I think there's like 4 bases in the Farmers Invitational, and I think each base is going to have its strengths and weaknesses. Like, so we did see a couple maxes. Do you think that it was just because it works, or they didn't even have an NG? Like, how important of a role does a squad composition play as far as class loadouts or class distribution?
Well, when you bring a max in a situation, if a max is a component of your squad in a map this small, maxes command such attention from the other players on the other team, and they don't even have to be the first person to push out or even get kills. The fact that they exist completely changes the rhythm of the players on the battlefield. So I think that's probably the single most highlighting impact of squad composition is when something like that is pulled. But aside from that, having an infill down, obviously the information that infills gather, hugely important. But I think the bread and butter of any composition will always be heavies in this game.
Yep. I mean, during our match, we were rolling, 4 heavies, 1 medic, 1 infill. Recursion was actually rolling 5 heavies. They just had the logic that you reinforce so quickly, and the medic is just kind of a liability. On the other hand, DA rolled a medic, and they were pretty effective with it. So, there's definitely depending on the situation of the match. I think the way that our match rolled out, having 5 heavies was definitely the better call.
Yeah, I was
Just
about
the
to.
general pace.
Yeah, I was about to ask you because I know like they were playing a medic, and I noticed like typically, especially in a base like this, that the medic has to play passive, right? Like because he has to he's in charge of keeping the momentum up. You pick guys up and you keep pushing. Like, do you think a medic was more of a liability? I mean, I know you guys lost to Recursion, but do you think it was because they had the 5 heavies? Like, does it make that big of a difference?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's rather that they were using that extra heavy to extremely good effect with just having extra rockets, extra grenades, and just the all-out aggression. Like, any time we were set up on a point, it would just be totally spammed out, and there's no way to sit in all the good spots that were picked out or anything. They just push it all at once, and you just, yeah.
Scourge is exactly right. Our own thoughts were, Ghost Marauder is medic, typically. And so, we found in our practices that, it wasn't giving us enough output where, the extra heavy would, help us, control those, very important positions that, shooters can do a lot of work from. So, we did 5 heavies, and while that didn't, just doesn't seem that sophisticated, we tried to, put the sophistication on, what they were using. It's like we had both Cyclone heavies and anchors and NC6 Gauss heavy, and so we tried to threaten the Orions in close range with the anchors and threaten them at long range, with those other weapons, because, as you guys know, that the, damage drop off of the Cyclone is, after like 20 meters is going to, take an extra bullet, and so it's like, and also because the Cyclones have 75 movement speed as well, we feel that they are competitive with, Orions at that shorter ranges. So, the thing for us was just trying to make sure that the heavies that were spec'd for close range were engaging in close range, and the heavies that were spec'd for long range were engaging exclusively at long range.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting just how totally useless maxes were on this map. I think a lot of that was specific to the map and just, the teams. But yeah, I mean, usually I'm like the alternate max player where basically, situation comes up, we need a max. I pulled one once and just totally, died. It's just, situation is just not good for a max this week.
Yeah, you pull a max in close quarters when you have a bunch of heavies that are just, they all know what they're doing. They know how to throw AV names. They know where to put rockets. They're on a team speak and coordinating. It's a really hostile environment for a max. You become the focus of those rockets, and all it takes is 2 heavies hopping around a corner, and that's 5 points down. AC pulled a max, and he only just broke even before he went down.
It speaks to the wisdom that Future Crew had in setting this up. That they were able to make a system where maxes were a threat, but are balanced enough to where it's a really important decision that a team has to make to pull one out.
Yeah, I mean,
when you're on live, you pull a max, and it's almost just guaranteed easy streak a lot of the time. That's why a lot of people feel it as cheese. Where in this format specifically, like you're saying, it is a weighed decision with pros and cons. And like Scourge was saying, in a match like this, there's a lot more cons than pros to pull a max.
yeah, it was.
I'd
think
like
on that.
to say that.
Oh,
Sorry, I'd just like to say that once again that this whole match is because Future Crew set this up and have expended their internal resources to make this happen. They have members that could help them practice, that could help them on the team being refs, setting this up, and they've really done a fantastic job with all of this.
And I guess people can't say we made the format for ourselves anymore, huh?
I honestly don't think that was ever in question, Scourge. I mean, and it was one of the things. I know you were there, Scourge. Like when they announced the rules at SW Live, like you could almost probably imagine everybody just rolling their eyes and groaning because you're like Maxes. But it was one of those things that it worked, man. Like Malorn came up with the point system, and it really worked. And that's why I was super excited to when I found out that that you guys in Tav and all were gonna actually do this Farmers Invitational, because then everybody else would actually be able to see that, hey, people think that PlanetSide, like Maxi and me were talking before the game, that it's all about scale, right? That you need like a server smash to show like the competitive side of PlanetSide 2. But I disagree. I mean, that the thing about PlanetSide 2 to me is that it can work in any format, and this rule set just proves that, at least in my eyes. I don't know what you guys think about that.
The rule set as it's implemented right now, I think it's really interesting, right? There obviously it takes a high level skill with gunplay that that is necessary to be a top tier in this format, but you can't just crutch on that. You'll see that coordination synergizes really well with that play, and anytime you have high level gunplay and you have just that perfect synergy with coordination, it's so dominant, and there's no crutching on skill alone. Everyone in AC knows how to shoot, but we felt that just superior coordination, and we just got outplayed. It was really nice to see kind of like all aspects of the gunplay in this game being showcased in this format.
Yeah, I was actually that's a really awesome segue. It's almost like we planned it, because I was about to ask you, because I know the casters were saying that DA was out shooting AC, but it seemed more like just the advantage was all in the positioning and the right timings. Like, so how important is, like, say, pure mechanical skill versus kind of like that team coordination? Like, do you guys value one over the other, or what do you guys think about that?
I think the teams were actually really close to each other. Like all four teams were close to each other in terms of mechanical, like who can aim and stuff like that. I think a lot of what things came down to was just that the teams just would have you'd have two guys shooting at one, or you'd have one guy splashed out by a grenade and then being shot at. It was just better team play just caused people to outshoot.
I think in a format like this, you have well, just in the game in general, every class pretty much has 1,000 hit points, and there's a really low TTK. And so if you can position your guys to where you have 2-on-1, this is like people just go down so quick with that 1,000 hit points. It doesn't matter how well you shoot, you just you can't ever out aim positioning if it's done well. Anytime you get
Um, well, first of all, competitive and live are very different animals. And but obviously, you kind of like rate people's ability on live. People come to your outfit, with certain statistics that they've learned on live, but it takes a certain personality, because that person, while fantastic on live, has to go through the kind of demeaning process of competitive, where it's like you're no longer 8 KDR running into a room outscaling everyone. It's like you have to humble yourself and be more part of a team. And so it's almost honestly ego management. I mean, that would be what I would say is I mean, like, Dread has fantastic players, but to make those players play together, to make those players synergize well, they have to be humble to each other and be humble to the situation, being like, I don't want to 1v1 that guy, because that would be stupid. Why don't I 2v1 him? Wait for my friend, figure out how to get those guys communicating. It's like there is sort of, I don't want to say a skill cap, but I would say that 1v1 effectiveness has a limitation, and that's good. People talk about tactics. It's like, this is when the tactics happen. So I mean, I think Dread's going to do fantastic. They just need to work out that discipline and synergy between themselves.
Yeah, that's one of the more ambiguous skills that are actually central to how successful you are in the top rungs of this format. And it's hard to pin exactly what each player needs, but you get outfits like that are new to the competitive scene. That's definitely one of the things that will benefit them the most is learning that coordination.
Lots and lots of scrimming. I mean, that's the biggest thing they showed this week is that Recursion practiced their pants off. Like they were on there like every night. And we were a little full of ourselves, like, we just got to practice, a couple times. And we would have loved to field a couple players like Murda, but they weren't able to make it to this week's. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's just you just got to practice. You just got to show up. You got to play together. You got to hammer out strats, and and you got to keep yourself sharp too. Like when people aren't playing for a couple days or not playing a lot, it's definitely it's very noticeable. And there's the aim, how quick they react, stuff like that.
I think AC was singing a pretty similar tune. We thought we just have practices and we'll be fine, and that turned out not to be the case. During the match and even after the match, in hindsight, we realized that we could have gathered quite a bit from just a few more practices. Like really getting those grenade angles down and where to stand. Maybe a couple different, really well rehearsed, coordinated pushing movements. That would have just paid back huge dividends in the match, and it's just unfortunate. We just have been a little bit more humble and realized we needed more practice.
Yeah, and
it's
I think
human
it was
nature. They're. Go ahead, Karen.
No, go ahead.
It's human nature. I mean, these outfits are champions. Future Crew, has every accolade they could ever achieve, and it's like I would bet it's very difficult. It's like you got to stay hungry, you got to stay motivated, and it's like things like Arcade. I know that is affecting everybody, and it's they shouldn't be so hard on themselves. It's like they set this whole thing up. A lot of their resources are, and this wasn't a playoff match. Like this is just a match, and we're going to see them in the playoffs again, and it's probably going to make things more interesting. Frankly, that there might be other outfits that can step up and bring a few more names to this competitive scene.
Oh yeah, that definitely makes things more exciting. I think that this isn't a single elimination tournament like all the others before. There'll be a revenge match someday, right?
Well, I hope it's not a revenge match, Scourge. We have nothing but respect, and we hope it's a.
It's a revenge match.
It's a revenge match. I don't think we've done anything to wrong you. I think through QRF and Server Smash, we've had a great relationship with Scourge as leader of Future Crew, and we've always looked up to you guys and seen you guys on live. And people say we're rivals, and I kind of hate that because I don't feel like we're rivals. We bring each other's game up. That's really what this is. It's like, I'm being educated by, your guys, and I hope that my guys bring some education to your guys. So why is this, a hostile relationship? It doesn't have to be. It shouldn't be.
Well, yeah, and we'll definitely be up in our game. We've learned our lesson.
Yeah, but I agree with what you're saying. But I think the beautiful thing about farmers is, like, I'm really happy. I mean, I want to make really 2 points about it. Is one, in the eyes of a lot of people, there was 2 David vs. Goliath matches. But then if you really understood what these teams are putting into it, you would realize that wasn't the case, as the results proved. And I think, too, the really exciting thing is, now what's AC going to do? Now what's Future Crew going to do? And that only pushes the boundary even further because, I don't know what it's going to, what their internal stuff is like, but I imagine that what can we do in the next map? How can we make basically this map our, our B? You know what I mean? How can we make sure that this doesn't happen again? And then say, that happened. So there's like a cycle of always wanting to improve. And I think it's really awesome that at least out of 8 teams, you have, 4, actually, I would say 5. I'd say TIW's in there too. TXR, they're kind of inconsistent, but you have at least 5 or 6 decent teams that are going to push themselves, and that's to me is really really exciting. That's why I'm really glad it turned out the way it did yesterday.
Yep, and all the teams are like surprisingly friendly with each other. You know, they're all in the group chats. They're all helping out anytime you know, the organizers or whatever need you know, assistance with anything. There's people, you know, everywhere stepping up, and people are very invested in you know, pushing this format, pushing, you know, um, just, just events like this in the future. It's you know, this one has been surprisingly successful, I think, and a lot of it's just been all the people helping, all the preparation.
Yeah, I've liked how this has unfolded so far. Last night, I was really, I found the results really interesting. The fact that Future Crew and AC both took a loss. There's just, for the most part, among these top tier outfits, as far as I know, any rivalries aren't really so much like a toxic, antagonistic rivalry. They're much more of like friendly rivalries. We all kind of push ourselves and beyond where we're currently at. And I think right now, if last night would have unfolded the way everyone would have thought it would, I think like all the big names would have just won, and it wouldn't have been as fun as it is right now, where like Recursion stepped up, and I was expecting Future Crew to win, to be honest, because I was more familiar with them, and seeing how fiercely Recursion fought last night just completely changed the way that I view a lot of the people that are in this tournament right now. And it's been incredibly exciting seeing my perception shift like that.
Yeah, and there was a lot of really cool things too that I saw. Like as far as what Christian was doing, like the timings, when Scourge pushed that door, you know, that double desi to the face, and so that kind of leads me to this: like, how important is shot calling? I mean, I know maybe you guys don't want to reveal what you guys are doing, and I understand that, but you know, how does the communication work on when you guys are actually in the match? Is there like one person shot calling? Is everybody kind of communicating what they're seeing? So, like, how does it work for you guys?
Well, usually it's just like everyone sees the guy coming on the sensor stick, and you know, it's just people kind of naturally come together and, you know, have their desis out. Like you kind of have people that are, you know, you have people in all the spots and so forth, and you know, just both the guys top stair, just both had a rocket. And I think I took an AV nade hit too. Like they were just,
Yeah, it was
you know,
lovely.
having an AV nade out every once in a while just to keep it so you couldn't push.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting, and I think it kind of goes back to what we were talking about how rockets kind of suppress and displace and hit shields. Because I remember like you had peaked, and then AB, it almost looked like he knew, or whoever threw it knew you were coming in, and so
Probably
I
did.
think, yeah, I say it's going to even get more like that. Where I mean, you have to almost watch every door, but eventually you do have to push. So I think it's pretty interesting. But so you guys don't have just one shot caller on your team, Scourge, or Maxi or Sayl? Is it just kind of just like a team thing?
I was for AC. For the most part, when everything's going well, when there's a push, you just kind of, you don't want to micromanage too much. You want to like let people adapt dynamically to the environment that they're in, and you really get the most rewards that way. But when things go wrong, right? Usually you have like this. People die and they'll try to reinforce their teammates from the Sunday. And in a map like this, that's a relatively low travel time. And that works, but sometimes you'll get that trickle in where you're just getting slaughtered, and you need people to just kind of like stop, reinforce, you know, get everyone to group up, and then make a movement together if you need to kind of like break a really solid hold or something like that. So every now and then, it's important to kind of get people on the same page. Um, but that's not something like, it's not like a play by play. You're always making this call and you're always telling everyone where to be at all times. Like Scourge was saying, it works out a lot more um, productively if everyone's just fluid and organic, and all the people can kind of watch the map and everyone plays to their own strengths and their own situations.
We had a both hard and a soft approach. You know, we had a strategy. We had positions that we wanted to be. You know, I talked about, you know, the Cyclones and the Gauze, but we also had soft strategies where, you know, we let our playmakers make plays. We have a very talented heavy named Therum on our team, and he's a very aggressive, you know, heavy, and so it's like a lot of, he has good instincts, and we trust those instincts, and so we'd never try to fight alone, and so if Theron is making a play, we're going to back it up, and we have a very good flanker in Steppen, a very good infill, and if he makes a play, they're going to back him up. And another thing is protecting those ranged heavies from CQB, focusing so they aren't engaging in the situations that they're not going to win. So both hard and soft strategies.
And yeah, that's as Sayl points out, like, just on a team, I mean, even if you're talking like one class, like two different people playing the same class, two different people are going to play very differently. You'll have, a guy who's very defensive, like, I'm usually considered like one of the most defensive players in the format. I'm pretty good at holding up points and just locking down stairs, stuff like that. But the other hand, you have, some really aggressive players, and they just kind of help shake up the match. They kind of help push things when, it seems like they're stalemated. And yeah, you just naturally get plays that kind of, they weren't really planned ever. I mean, they kind of were planned, like you might have had like this idea in your head, but it's like, it sort of happens when it does. You can't force it.
Yeah, and there was this thing Maxi and I were talking about, and it's something I hadn't considered, because obviously I there's no way I could hang with any of you guys, but it was something that Maxi had said, and it was about Theron, and he was talking about how Theron is kind of pushing the boundaries as far as the meta, and meta in this case is basically like what these players are doing, what these teams are doing, like how the best play the game. That's what I'm talking about when I say meta. So do you think that it's gonna like change at all? Like, is there potential there to see stuff that we haven't seen before? I mean, even knowing that we've been playing on the same engine for 2 years. Because I think recently they just announced on PTS that they're changing the third-person skeleton. They're changing animation. The hitboxes should be the same, but some animations are changing. Like, do you guys think that as far as like movement and things like that, is there boundaries that can be pushed, or I mean, is this pretty much as good as it's gonna get? What do you guys think?
I think that there's something called Peeker's Advantage. Rel has talked about it a lot, and it's a big part of competitive. Like, almost, it's not quite, but almost the attackers have an advantage in like that first, I believe it was 0.4 seconds of basically if you occlude them and they have to occlude you, you actually have the advantage. So, kind of like peeking and firing and so like, you say Theron pushes the meta, and it's true because he's so good at like just forcing Peeker's advantage via corner to corner corner that he like takes away your range, because it's hard to be lethal, and he's good at movement, and med sticking and overshield. He's going to distill every engagement to CQB, and he can do that, or we've found that he can do that. So if you do that, and then you have a close range weapon. I mean, the NC has a Cyclone, that's 167 3-shot kill up to like 11. So I mean that at 652 or 658 or something is the RPM. That's like shotgun TDK. So like it's almost like a shotgun kill. But yeah, so I think that the meta. Right, go ahead.
I just want to the conversation that kidRiot and I were having before the match was specifically addressing Theron's ability to use specialized movement to kind of mitigate a lot of the effect of, like, say, putting on an overshield, how that slows you down, or firing from the hip. He moves in a way that, because I've screamed him once a few times, and when you're in a close quarters with him, he's able to come at you full speed while strafing left and right, and putting on periodically an overshield and firing from the hip. That is something that I've never seen from anyone else, and as far as I know, he's the only person where he shows the most proficiency with that specific set of movements, and that's what I mean. Like, he really moved the meta in terms of high-end gameplay and movement. It's something I can't replicate yet, and I think Distort PC probably has the best handle on it, but it's still nowhere near what I've seen from Theron.
Yeah, they're talking about changing some animations and skeleton rigging stuff again or whatever. That might change everything up again. I mean, I remember back in the day when Duck Strafe was like the big thing, like everybody was doing. And then one day there was just a patch that just killed it. So I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, it kind of feels like with the patches and these changes, it's like Forrest Gump and his box of chocolates. You know, it's like there's intended things, but then there's also like a lot of unintended stuff that happens. Like always, it seems almost inevitable that something's going to change in a subtle way, but that's going to be really important. You know, like with the hit detection, like we were talking about how like the hit detection. What was it, Maxi? It dropped like what 5% after like they integrated the PS4 code or something like that.
The headshot percentage after
Yeah.
the directives patch, like across the board, we can drop by like 20%.
Which is
And
absolutely
the heavy
huge.
yeah, that completely changes heavy gameplay. If you come around all of a sudden, you're hitting 20% less headshots. Everything is different.
Yeah. Okay. I want to talk about.
So
Oh, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna further talk about numbers, but basically the headshot hitbox got converted, and that was what was responsible for the change. It was unintended, but in AC anyway, we noticed a huge deviation in how we usually approach fights because of that small little change.
Oh, I was gonna say is we were talking about mechanics and shooting and stuff, and like right now on the stream, the score is like 172 to 134, and Recursion's lead. Like when you're down, and I wouldn't say it's a significant amount of like a margin. I mean that's like what like because I noticed when Shock was casting, like a lot of stuff would be going on, and I know it's kind of easy to lose track, and all of a sudden like it was close, and he says, "Well, what happened to the score?" Like when you wipe, it's like potentially 10 points. You know, in 2 or 3 waves, at least 2 waves can happen pretty quick, right? Where you die, you respawn, or you get revived. Like, how important is it to like to stay cool, or like what do you guys do when you're behind in the situation? Like, do you just gonna get more aggressive? Do you get passive, or what do you guys think is the ideal situation that she does?
Well, I mean, at the time that, we're actually watching the stream, we were just going like, well, we just get a base cap, and then we defend the flag against like 2 or 3 waves, and just
Right.
get a couple wipes, and then blam, we're even, we're back in it. Hope was not lost, not until like 2 minutes or so on the cap, when it was like you couldn't get the cap at that point.
Yeah, because I mean, it's what you could generate 10 points in seconds, right? I mean, if you wipe out 12 points, I should say. If you wipe out the team, usually it's not six. It's like the one info, the one medic playing passive, so they usually die last. But I mean, it's pretty easy to generate 12 points. So 24 points could easily happen. What in like 2 3 minutes?
Yep,
Like,
and then a base cap on top of that.
are you guys like cognizant of all that as you're playing, or are you just focused on kind of like what you're doing, or because I don't know if I don't know if it's implemented yet where or I don't know what Tab was saying where each team can kind of see the score as they're playing. Like, are you guys
There is
aware?
a call out by the refs at
Oh, okay.
I think the 10-minute and the 5-minute mark with the scores.
Yeah,
I
when
think,
you're playing, like the exact score is not necessarily on your mind, but I mean it's really important information to have periodically to know, like if you're down, that you need to make a specific play, like you need to wipe and get that point, or it's all lost. And sometimes with the scoring, you might notice that it doesn't even matter if they get the point. You might play differently. But right now the information isn't readily available aside from that 10 and 5-minute call.
I think discipline is important. AC Dis he talked about the angry Rambo syndrome, and I thought that was something that we've experienced before, where players will try they get killed and then they try to like just do the whole thing themselves, because they've seen that themselves do that before, and so it's just like discipline. I think that's why hard and soft strategies. You want those hard strategies, because if these players are being their mind is being affected by frustration or anxiety over losing, just need like some strats to be like, all right, go to A, go to one, go to B, go to the strategies we've talked about, take the decision out of their head.
Yeah, I think it brings up a really good point, and it almost ties into what you said about being humble, because it's really easy to get pissed off and say, F this, I'm going to get him. But when you do that, you overextend yourself and you put your team in a bad spot. But I think for the most part, I mean, looking at the match, there was very few times. I mean, I thought that I saw where somebody just made a really bad decision and got overexposed. Most of it was just really good, like 1-to-1s or 2v1s, pushes or holds. So I think for the most part, like you see it, like at least with your guys' teams and also DA, that it's going to happen less often. But I think it's really easy too, like if you don't have the leadership or the team synergy that you guys have, where people are like, screw this, I'm going to do it. And you kind of see that with the other teams.
Yeah, or just the reverse of people just getting like demoralized. Like, that's a big thing that I notice when players first get into scrimming, competitive outfits, is there's kind of like the opposite of the angry Rambo, where it's like they just get more and more and more defensive as they're losing, because obviously you're gonna die a bunch when it's like your first couple scrims, right? But at some point you do have to be like kind of courageous. You kind of have to be out there, covering those doors, just pushing points.
Right. No, I agree. There's like an axiom or a saying or something, right? Where like the worst thing you could do is hesitate. Like it's better just to do something than to hesitate. And I think you could actually see that it's quantifiable. Where when you see somebody like there was, where people kind of hesitate, they'll push in and then they'll push back out. Like they won't dedicate to going in. But I think a lot of it too, from like the viewer perspective, is we don't see or we don't listen to what you guys are saying. So like I remember in the AC versus DA match, I think in the first round, where AC, and I think this was kind of calling it out, was in the top room, and they weren't pushing the big stair, and so this was saying, well, it looks like AC is kind of hesitant, but we don't know that as a viewer. It might be like like wait, and then push. Whereas we're saying, well, like maybe they are demoralized. So I think it's a pretty interesting thing where we see one thing that may not even be true at all as a viewer. I mean,
that happened to us. Honestly, I know we were doing. I know that our team thought we were doing well, but it was such a close game. No one capped the point. Like besides the shouting, it's like within those. Within the middle of those shouting, when he tells us that we're winning, we weren't sure, if we're even winning at this point. So it was bloody, and it was tough mentally on our team at least.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely had some people getting a little salty about the Rockets. It's like, yeah, you just gotta focus, gotta keep your head in the game, not be thinking about what's fair, what's not fair. You have to just put everything aside, just be focusing on what do we need to do, what do we need to change to to get an edge. And I mean, that's the thing, is like you saw both teams adjust a lot over the course of both rounds. It wasn't like we were just playing the same match for 30 minutes.
Not at all. I mean, some things obviously are going to look similar just because it's the same base or whatever. But no, the dynamic between the teams was very different in both matches, I think. There was at one point, I believe it was AC in the first round, where they pushed outdoors. I think it was where DA had the north center. I know you guys correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was the only time, or one of the few times between both matches, that a team actually pushed outdoors.
Yeah, we wanted to push outdoors, but if you get a wipe, you might have like 2 or 3 people left, and you don't want 2 or 3 people going up against their full team of 6 coming at you. So in this particular map, it seemed almost like it forced you to stay indoors, even if we would have liked to have been more aggressive.
Yeah,
it's exactly what we found.
Yeah, and it was really interesting. Like typically, like on a live server, when you play a door, you a little more aggressive. But I like the way I was watching a lot of these guys play the doorways by sitting on the stairs to kind of suck up the grenades and stuff. And I was going to ask you guys, because Scourge, you were talking about when you scrim, how it's it is kind of humbling because you do get decimated. Like, I mean, shoot, I still get trashed in scrims. But how would you guys compare? I mean, if you had to, this experience with live server, pub play, how would you kind of like equate it or explain it to people who have no experience, in a competitive format?
I don't think I would.
I get adrenaline rushes playing this. I rarely get adrenaline rushes playing online. Like, everything here is just so precise, and you're punished for every little mistake. On live, you just feel like Rambo. You just go in there and you can mow over a whole platoon, excuse me, a whole platoon sometimes. And, you know, if you're in the right position, or you have like the right luck. But in this, like every little inch, you almost have to fight for. And when you get kills, they're so much more gratifying.
Yeah, it's just I mean, the big thing about like scrims and such is just the mortal peril you are in all the time. You know, you can never be exposed to the enemy and expect to live ever. Like any second that somebody with a gun can see you, you're like, you know, that could be like ding ding ding, you're dead. So it's just, you know, you have to be watching every angle, every corner. You have to just know every lane. You know, the line of sight for, you know, pushing every direction. You know, has to be in the back of your mind while you're playing.
I think it's a scalability thing. Like, you know, we're fighting over the same bases, but it's not the same amount of people. It's not the same flow and pressure. It's like, you know, a base changes when 48 versus 48, or a base changes when it's 6v6, or a base changes when it's platoons fighting each other. And the tactics and strategies are much different. I think the smaller you go, you know, the more, you know, as these guys are very aptly putting, you know, the more the micro matters. You know, it's like, you know, you can, you know, with a medic ball, like, take a bunch of casualties, and as long as the other team isn't coordinated enough to push through the casualties they did inflict, you can just repair your line. But in this, it's like every single person that dies matters, because he concedes the ground he was covering. And, you know, it's a very, very different experience.
Yeah, I think I agree with what Maxi was saying. You know, even when we were doing like the Nux stuff, I would get a huge adrenaline from it. You know, and then you go back to live, and it's kind of, I mean, to me, live is more like a chat room, you know, with your buddies. To me, it's what it's more like. And then you get this stuff, which actually gets your blood pumping. But we're gonna move on. I think to like possibly, I think the only, I know you guys probably won't do it because I was listening to what Sayl was saying, but potentially the only kind of smack talking section or segment of this episode, and that's predictions for next week, which is what, Tuesday is AC versus TIW. What are you guys' thoughts on this? We'll start with let's start with Maxi first. What do you think?
I've seen TIW's top tier. They have some really talented people in that outfit. It really will depend on who they field against us, on whether or not they're really going to give us a run for our money. I think right now, TIW, they have what they need to really bring a good game that night. Whether or not they do is up to them. I think AC is going to be very, very well prepared to fight against them.
Okay, so let's get an actual prediction then. I mean, obviously you're AC, so who's going to win between you?
Yeah,
guys?
I'm biased, so I have to play AC. Yeah.
Okay, Scourge, who do you think?
Yeah, I mean, love Tauron, love you changes, but unfortunately, I'm gonna have to hand it to AC. They just they have
it's AC
amazing
versus TIW.
shooters. Oh, TIW. Oh,
yeah, you guys are playing TXR.
I was looking at this and I saw TXR. TIW, yeah, I would still hand it to AC. I mean, TIW is a very well practiced team. You know, they have some really good strats. They have a lot of depth in terms of players that can do multiple, you know, classes and such. But I think AC, especially if they get Vizzy and who's the other? I think Lex wasn't there this week, and that was a huge loss, I think, for AC.
Yeah, we had to adapt quite a bit to the when you have Alex and Vizzy, you're two very hyper aggressive players, and AC had to really change the way it flowed in the absence of those two people.
Yeah, and it seemed like you were. I mean, you could. I'm sure you could play anything. I've watched your streams, Maxi, but I think you feel more comfortable. And correct me if I'm wrong, as an infill, but you weren't able to do that this match because you were missing Vizzy and Lex.
Yeah, my infill play is tied in with Vizzy and Lex, and if they're gone, then as you saw in this last match, I had to take up heavy, which I feel very comfortable in. I got primary heavy, but I can't play infill unless there's certain things happening on the field. I can count on Lex and Vizzy. We kind of like, I know what Vizzy's gonna do, and I can play around that. I didn't have that predictability, that anticipation.
Okay. What do you think, Sayl? AC versus TIW?
You know, obviously, if you were to, you know, ask the community what are the best players infantry-wise in the game, they would list a lot of AC. You know, this is pure abstractly looking at it, but you know, so really the liability for AC is like one thing TXR is relentless. They do not care. Like they are going to power through anything, and so like you
No,
know,
it's AC versus TIW.
Oh. I'm
You
sorry,
put on
this
the
is-
spreadsheet wrong.
The
Okay,
spreadsheet's wrong.
Oh, well,
Confusing us, man.
yes. Can we go to the next one and then I mean I can't
Oh, okay, I screwed up. I see what you mean. Sorry.
Okay. Yes.
Oh, I did the way wrong thing. Okay, hold on.
Yes. Okay, so IW is a really good NC outfit. They, you know, have the most competitive experience for any NC outfit. You know, so Pale Canyon is an interesting map. It's you know, there's some light assault feasibility there, I feel like, and you know, NC has, you know, pretty good light assault weapons, or at least you know, we found that, so that could be a factor. Yeah, I think I'd give it to AC.
Yeah, so I just want to apologize. I didn't realize in the Google Doc that I skipped a few weeks. I didn't realize that. My bad. As far as my prediction, I think that TIW saw AC lose, and that might encourage them to practice more, but I think it's also going to do the same for AC. So for me, I would have to hand it to AC. Just because I think if they both practice, like, if there was like this kind of like hypothetical situation where both teams practiced equally hard, that AC would get better for it than TIW would, in my mind. But let's move on to the next, Dread versus Recursion. Obviously, Sayl, we'll start with yours. What do you think about this one?
Well, obviously, you know, you got to root for your team. You know, it's Dread is a fantastic outfit. They have more experience than we do at this. They have fantastic players and MLG genius. And as I said, Pale Canyon can be, or at least we feel is has some light assault opportunities. And Rheinfear is absolutely incredible light assault. So that will be a question in which we will be, you know, trying to answer in simulations going throughout the week.
All right,
Yeah,
Scourge, thoughts? Or go ahead, Maxi, go ahead.
I think Dread. They have Ryan. He's really interesting on assault. The rest of them, they're going to be learning a lot from all this competitive play, and I think it'll be interesting to see an outfit like Dread and how they evolve over this competitive scene and see like what they gather, what they learn, what they can put together. But right now, especially after seeing last night's performance against Future Crew, I think Recursion is just they're a really solid entry now. I would be very surprised if Dread was able to get the upper hand.
Yeah, I agree.
I kind of feel the same way. I mean, Dread, it's important to note, guys, that Dread, you know, came into this tournament like last minute. So they just kind of like threw a roster together, you know, at the last minute and weren't really practicing for the format or nothing. You know, they were one of the teams that came in after some people backed out. So it is just kind of like their roster, unfortunately, just doesn't have the same kind of depth a lot of these other teams do.
Yeah, I think Dread's strength is more like in 24s, because I know they've scrimmed a lot, and when I would talk to Odin, like their approach was really methodical. But like unfortunately in the sixes, as you guys know, like being methodical just it doesn't work. I mean, you talk about like the patience to you know like assault and the patience to hold a like a stare helps, but you kind of have to be a little bit on the wild side. I think, you know, like a disciplined wildness, I guess, kind of like, because it's so much chaos going on. But I'm excited. I mean, like they've been stucking around, and I think like you guys said, they weren't initially part of it, but the fact that they're still in it and that, you know, they're still trying, you know, speaks volumes to me, you know, about their classes and outfit. So
We
let's
know that
go.
from live. They're really just a
Yeah.
fantastic outfit. Probably the best on the TR for TR Connery, and Odin is very motivated, leader who goes out there and goes and gets people, and I think they're going to do really well.
So let's move on to Thursday. DA versus 56RD. That's what do you think, Scourge?
I could basically say what I just said again.
Yeah.
That's actually the other outfit that came in at the last minute. It was a 56RD. So again, it's just it kind of sucks for them that kind of got like, oh hey, we need people and you haven't been practicing or anything, and kudos to them for stepping up.
Yeah, I think DA brings a more experience. They have a lot of the higher end talent. But just again to highlight, like people like from 56, they get the opportunity to clash against some of the best infantry talent in the game, and as long as they can stay positive in terms of like self criticism, like they tend to have a huge upward shift in player ability and talent. Like they can learn a lot from this, and they can really, even if they don't win the tournament, they can come away from this tournament with the people that played being a lot better players now and better prepared for future tournaments. So I think this will be more of a learning experience for that outfit.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point. That the fact is that yes, these outfits came in, obviously unprepared, but it's like an advanced education, right? I mean, you're playing against one-on-one against some of the best outfits, probably the best outfits in North America. And typically on live, I mean, how often are you able to do that, right? Or even more rarely, how often is like Recursion fight Future Crew based by themselves? It never happens. So this is almost like an awesome learning experience that they could just take back and learn. As long as they have a stable, consistent roster and practice, there's no reason, as long as they stick to it, that they don't improve, right? That they don't get better. What do you think, Sayl, about DA versus 56?
56RD is an extremely talented outfit on live. First of all, if you go over last server smash, the south lane was held by 56RD. So it's like they're really good. They have a lot of really good pilots, and so they're trying to make the transition to use that teamwork they have on live in planes and do it for infantry. They have players like Illicit, who is a really really good player. And it's like just he's got to learn this, very particular skill set, and I think they're going to do it, man. I mean, the fact that they took some losses, they took some lumps, and they're still in it just shows that they're resolve. And so, but DA is DA. Perp and Associates are a legendary outfit that honestly has changed the game, with Dazenfall and the thing, or Stats.Dazenfall and the things they've done, and attracted a lot of talent for that. So, as much as I'd love to see underdogs win, I'm gonna have to say DA takes it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's I mean, it's I think it's pretty much set in stone, especially because DA comes off that win. Not another thing like to come off those kinds of wins, and I think you were kind of hitting at it, Sayl, is that you don't let it get to your head, that you keep practicing and you keep practicing hard, because like you said, it's just a one match, right? It's not a playoff. So I'm really curious to see how DA plays and how they come out, whether they come out strong or whether they kind of like lighten up on practice, because I think it'll be noticeable, and how many points are scored. Now let's go on. The second match on Thursday is TXR versus Future Crew. Let's start with you, Scourge.
Well, I mean, on one hand, TXR got to see that Future Crew is in fact immortal, can be beaten. So, I mean, maybe that's like some encouragement to them, right? Something. But on the other hand, we're going to be practicing more, so.
Yeah, I was about to say, what's your plan this week for practice? And that's the thing, though, right? You guys won the first, I guess, decent S3 comp, and then you guys won last year or this year. So it's not like, I mean, obviously everybody expects a lot of things from you, but like, was it? How do I word this? Like, are you almost in a way glad that it happened? I mean, I know nobody likes to lose, but are you glad in the sense that it kind of makes you guys more hungry? I mean, do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, in most tournaments, it's like you can't lose. In most PS2 tournaments so far, because it's like single elimination, blah. But here it's like it's a learning experience. You take a loss and then you're still in the tourney. So it's like things can go back and forth. Teams develop over time. It's not just going to be the same results over and over again, or just victory parades like we saw in Clash and tourneys like that. So I mean, it's really exciting that we can look at these weeks after week 4 and still be like, I don't know, like things could change a lot in that amount of time.
Yeah, it really can. It really can. And I think the top 6. I think the top 6 are more or less going to be the top 6, but the top 4 and the top 3 is I think where there's going to be a lot of shifting back and forth, especially once the top teams, the top 4 teams start playing against each other. But what do you think, Maxi, about TXR versus Future Crew?
I think TXR has an uphill battle. They have a lot of capable players, but Future Crew is legend. So I think the history would just favor the world champions.
What are your thoughts, Sayl, on TXR versus Future Crew?
Well, remember TXR, grabbed a bunch of players from the now defunct OP4, such as like Versoch and It's Corny and some of their other experienced, heavies that have a lot of credentials. So TXR has gotten stronger. And like I said, TXR is relentless. They're always in these things. They're always pushing. They're always grabbing it. And as Scourge said, they saw that, so maybe, they see blood is in the water and they're just gonna like bring every single gun they can possibly, leverage and try to, take this. That being said, when you beat Future Crew, they say that they're gonna exact revenge on you. So I mean, that's just the kind of mindset you have in Future Crew, that these are players that do not like to lose, and if they do lose, they're gonna get you. So obviously that kind of sort of hunger and that mindset is definitely why they are the most storied and accoladed competitive team, and I'm gonna have to give it to Future Crew.
Yeah, I am too. But I think the thing, and it even happened to me, that we went to SW Live and I was able to actually play on the TXR A team. And when you talk to these guys and you see them play, they're really, really good players. I think TXR's problem has been consistency, and maybe like their top guns not performing as well as it should have. I know Tyron, he's hyper competitive. I know he was really upset. I mean, along with everybody else about SW Live, but he's super competitive. I know he's going to work hard with his team to make sure that they get better every week. And I think, in my opinion, that once TXR actually practices and gets to the level that they should be at, once they reach to they get closer to their skill ceiling, that you're going to see them in the top 4, easy top 3, in my opinion. And I think a lot of people don't see it, but I mean, I was with them, and I see a lot of great things as long as they're able to hold it together. Have that stable roster, keep practicing. That TXR will be up there. I mean, I almost kind of rate like TXR and TIW kind of in the same boat. Outfits that can break into like your top 4. And I think it's really exciting to see what happens even after towards the end of the regular season, or whatever they're calling it.
Well, as Sayl pointed out, very recently increased team depth by quite a lot.
Yeah,
and, that's like, you can't underestimate that. It's like having just 6 really good players for this tournament, believe it or not, is not enough. Like, you've got to have more than that, and that's
right.
Just it's essential for like just in-house play, and people that aren't going to be there one week, or like say just the map even is like, we want to bring this player instead of that one. Like, we didn't bring Murdo last week or this week, and we had a lot of people like, what are you doing? Why didn't you bring Murdo?
Why you bring Murdo?
I agree. So I actually we're going to finish up here soon, but I'm actually at Pell Canyon. What do you guys think about this map? I'm kind of floating around in the observer cam. It's really, really I don't know. I don't even know what to say about it. It's really interesting. You got 2 double stacks and a really, really tight point.
I'm curious to see whether or not it was going to be, most of the fighting is going to be outside. And because if it's outside, then obviously you have that longer range, completely changes dynamics. Or if we're all going to find a way to constantly feed into this like really tight quarters around the point, and everything's going to be really close. And I can't. It's either going to be one or the other, and I'm honestly not sure how it's going to pull off. I'll do quite a bit of scrimming to see how the fighting actually flows on this map.
Yeah, I think with the I forget what the first map was in the first week with the the H room. I mean, it's obvious that there's gonna be a lot of pushes and stuff going back and forth there, and the map that was played last night is just one big fight, right? One big arena. But this map is just there's a lot of areas to get like height advantage, to peek from like really odd angles, to rotate into the different buildings and to be aggressive or to be passive. It's gonna be really interesting. And I know that I don't know all the wall jumping spots, but it looks like there would be potential for a lot of wall jumping here.
Oh yeah, like there's a cliff you can jump onto the southern double stack there. There's like just all kinds of little
Yeah, I see it.
spots like that. And I think that's what one's going to see is that south building is kind of the focal point of the map. It shouldn't be as like all imposing dominant as the building was for this week. So it should be a little more spread out of a fight, which should be a good change of pace.
Okay, that's it. Do you guys have anything else to add as far as plugs or anything else?
I don't know about plugs. I just I can't say how much enough I'm enjoying this whole tournament, this format, and pretty much everyone involved. This whole season is something I didn't really see coming. We just got contacted about it, drafted up into it, and it's been a phenomenal experience the entire way through. Probably some of the most exciting Planetside that I've played since I've joined this game. It's been during this tournament.
I'd like to, thank you for having me, kidRiot, and just thank, Future Crew for hosting this tournament. I don't think people have a comprehension of how much work they've done setting this up, getting the casters, getting us all ready, and Tav has been just fantastic, and Base Tape, like if we're practicing, it's like, and they keep it real ethical, man. Like, it's like I mean, Future Crew has the keys to the castle. They could watch what we do. They could totally just find. And they don't. They don't. We know they don't. And they've been really ethical, and they really want competitive to work, and they're here, working, make that happen, both in their play and in their administration. So I'd like to plug Future Crew and the great people that make this possible.
Yeah, and we have a couple guys that probably would like to play, honestly, but instead they were just like, no, we just want to make sure this tournament pans out. Like, we got Toroko Kill is, he's one of our best shooters, and he's been just working on the API, slaving away, making the scoring system happen. So
Yeah.
I mean, big shout out to Base Tape and Toro and Shock also. He could be playing, but he's been casting instead, and I think everyone's been enjoying his casting.
Yeah, he's done a really good job.
And I see chat talking about like how farmers needs better PR, but in talking to Tav and seeing his viewpoint, Tav, for you guys who don't know, is actually, I don't know what you guys would call him, like the admin or the GM with the invitational, but I like his idea how he says the first and foremost, most important thing about this whole thing is that it actually works, right? That the teams are able to get in and play and enjoy themselves, and then comes all the other stuff. But it's all like icing on the cake, and I think I really like that viewpoint because it's really easy to get into the idea that you need certain cameras, you need certain things, when really like the heart of anything is the competition itself. And I think it's in a really good place right now.
Yeah, that's the big issue that other tournaments have had before, is it's always been about the stream and the show first. But ultimately, that's what matters, right? That's what brings the intensity, is that people are, they're having fun, and they feel like this is a tournament I really want to like push strategy to, the next level in.
Yeah, I think it's a really great setup. And with that in mind, we're gonna close off. Thanks. I was kidRiot, and with me was Sayl from Recursion, Scourge from Future Crew, and MAXiMUMSmurF from AC. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I think today at 5 p.m. Rel's going to be doing a State of the Game show, and Zoran is going to be on later on too. So tune into those shows. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Make sure, I think, next Tuesday and Thursday, the matches are going to be casted, right, by Shock?
I believe both Masters this week, yeah.
All right, so we get a double dose.
I mean, both days, yeah.
Yeah, we get a double dose of Farmers next week, which is awesome. Gets to see some good games. All right, thanks everybody, and thanks guys for showing up, man. I had a really good time. Learned a lot actually, and that's it for this week. Bye.